Hey guys, welcome to the Mother Days. I am your host, Teresa Palmer.
And I'm Sarah and Elle. Hi, Daisies. Welcome.
Hey.
We're so excited to have you here.
We are so excited. I have my tissues at the ready. I started crying thinking about recording this episode about 4 hours ago. And I got a voice message from Sarah being like, oh my God, I'm bawling. How am I going to get through this? This is such a beautiful episode that you're about to listen to, and you guys actually requested it. So we love going out to our listeners and asking, like, what are you looking for? What sorts of things do you want to hear about? And time again, we kept having listeners say, can you share with us a story about surrogacy? And I remember being like, oh, who do I know? And then, of course, just chance just decided to bring this beautiful little angel fairy along the way. Sarah, this is a different Sarah, not Sarah Olsen. This is Sarah Brion. Am I pronouncing that right? Sarah Brion?
Yes, perfect.
Brion. And I met Sarah B about, what was it? Would you say 7 months ago?
Yeah, I think so. 7 or 8 months ago.
7 or 8 months ago at a photo shoot at my house, and she's a wonderful photographer. And she told me that she was pregnant with another woman's little darling baby. And I was like, wait, tell me everything. And it was the most incredible story. And fast forward all these months later, you can hear the gurgling, cooing, happy little noises of Mr. Alfie, who is just, you know, the beautiful angel baby in this entire story. And we are just so excited to speak to Ellie, Alfie's mummy, and Sarah, the mummy that carried Alfie for Ellie and her husband. What a profound story, guys. I have goosebumps. It is just one that is so remarkable. And Sarah and I watched your reel. These ladies have been so open about this journey, and they cut together a reel of the birth and just the whole process leading up to it and getting pregnant and finding out the gender. And there's so many wonderful moments, and you've both been so revealing about this journey that I know that you're a pillar of inspiration for so many other women out there who are starting to dip their toe into this world and explore what their options are to motherhood, because as we know, it's not always a straightforward journey. And so, Ellie, I thought we would maybe start with you. You could just share with us about your beautiful family. And I know it wasn't the easiest path for you, so I'd just love to jump in and hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ellie. So I've got my husband, Luke, and my 2 little boys here, Earthside, Sunny, and now Alfie. And we've got 2 little boys above, Taj and Lenny. So, yeah, I'll dive more into that and tell you more about them.
When did you decide you wanted to be a mummy? How long ago did that journey start for you?
So back in 2015, my husband Luke and I got married. And from that point, we always knew that we wanted to start a family. And I suppose we just thought, we just won't be careful. We'll just see what happens. So it was literally like we got married in December of 2015. And it would have been probably the wedding night or the night after. I would have been ovulating and we fell pregnant.
Oh,
so,
my gosh.
First time of not being careful. And I thought, this is how it's meant to go, isn't it? It's meant to be this easy. And so that kind of set us up with this idea that pregnancy and becoming a mother was going to be a straightforward process. And so we were living in Darwin, Australia at the time. It's really straightforward pregnancy, no issues. We had the 20-week scan and everything was looking fine. And it would have been a couple of days later and I stayed home from work. I just felt a bit fluey and a bit off. And I was on the couch and I just felt a sharp pain in my stomach, got up and I just had a big gush of water. So, and I knew straight away, I'm like, this isn't good. But I obviously had never been pregnant before. I didn't really have any idea like what that meant. I didn't know that anything could go wrong. After 12 weeks, all I knew was like, you carry your baby to full term. And so I got up and called my husband straight away. He was at work, and then another gush. He came home straight away. We went to the hospital. It was such a blur and just kind of in denial, thinking that, it was going to be okay. They did a scan as soon as we got there and they said, look, we can see baby. It's moving. We didn't know it was he at that time. Heartbeat, we can see a heartbeat, but there's not much fluid left. So at this point, they were like, look, that can happen and we can still, it doesn't mean that like the pregnancy will be over. Sometimes the waters regenerate and it might have meant that I had to go on bed rest, but they're like, look, we'll just do an internal just to check everything out. And as soon as they did that, they realised that the umbilical cord had prolapsed. So at that point they were like, look, there's nothing we can do. The baby's not getting any nutrients. You have to give birth, and at this point it's too young to survive. Goodness. Just absolute shock. I just remember thinking, I don't want to do this. I didn't even know what was going to come next. And so we were given medication to bring on labour. It was really quick. And I gave birth to Taj naturally. And just remember back then just being so scared, like now I wish that I had have taken that time to just be with him and embrace that moment, but it was just so terrifying. And so we said goodbye to him.
So foreign.
We didn't know what he was going to look like, and it was we just obviously just were not prepared. So that was the beginning. So we lost Taj. That was in April of 2016. And so from then we were just like, we just want a baby in our arms. And so we left no time to wait. We just started trying again. And it just didn't happen. So it was month after month that we were just waiting and getting,
how devastating.
Getting negative pregnancy tests, and it got to a year and we're like, what is going on? Like, we weren't prepared for this. Like, it happened so easy the first time. And I was just trying I was healthy, exercising, doing all the right things. We saw a naturopath. When I know anyone that's trying for a baby, you try absolutely everything you can. And it just wasn't happening. So we went to an IVF clinic, and then they said, look, like, they ran tests and they're like, there's nothing that we can see. We call it unexplained infertility.
Gosh, that's so hard.
Yeah, and given that you've been pregnant and you've had a baby, it's actually secondary infertilities, which is a thing as well, which I just had no idea about. So we decided, okay, let's do IVF. Like, this will get us our baby. Like, IVF is like, in my head I had that was the kind of the final thing you do, and that would give us what we wanted. So we did a cycle, got 3 embryos, which was great. And then in about 2 years from there, we implanted every single one of those embryos and all of them failed. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I remember the last one, we were like, this is it. Like, 3 haven't worked. Like, what do we do now? And I just think at that point we just lost so much hope, and just felt so defeated. But now
and IVF is so expensive as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's so expensive, and not everyone can continue doing it for years and years.
No, and that's it. It's like
disheartening.
So we thought after that point we're just going to have a break. and I say break, I'm like, we were still trying. Like I feel like you can't just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I had like, well-intentioned people saying that, just relax, it'll happen. You're still so young. And yeah, I think anyone that is trying and is finding it really hard knows that it's not, you just can't relax. And yeah, you can't just let go of that. It's something, longing that just
consuming.
Yeah, all consuming. So then we came back down to Adelaide. So we were living in Darwin, which is quite a small city in Australia, Sarah. So there's not many, there's like one hospital, not many specialists. So we came back down to Adelaide and got a second opinion, and they started talking. She was like, look, just trying to cover everything. She said, your periods, like, have they been heavy? Do you get a lot of pain? I said, yeah, well, I do get a lot of pain at the beginning of my period. They are really heavy. She's like, all right, well, let's look into endometriosis, like just trying to cover everything they possibly could. And she did a scan and she could see shadows, but you can't 100% tell that you've got it unless they go in. So they went in to keyhole surgery and did a laparoscopy. And they found, I think it was stage 4 endo, and it was all around my bowel. And and it's so common. It is so common. I didn't even know what it was. I did not even know what it was. And so they removed it all. And then that month, I fell pregnant naturally.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Wow.
And so, and that's why I just feel really open and in sharing about endo, because I feel like if I knew, that would have been something that I could have explored earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it could affect fertility. So anyway, we fell pregnant, and that was actually with Sunny. So as soon as we were pregnant, we moved from Darwin down to Adelaide just to have the specialist care. They were monitoring us closely, doing scans every week. They didn't, with our first loss, they put it down to, it was called PROMS, with no real definitive reason why. So they were just looking at everything, and they said, oh, well, look at your cervix fortnightly, because that could be something that maybe it could have been shortening, and that could have made your waters break. And we got to, I think, 17 weeks, and they noticed quite a substantial shortening.
Wow.
Yeah, which another thing. So it turns out that I have, it's called cervical incompetency. That's the medical term for it.
We don't love that
hate
term.
that.
We talk about that in our book. We're like, why do you call the cervix incompetent?
I mean,
So I've got an incompetent cervix.
Great.
So yeah, just and then so they went and they put a stitch in. So it's called a cervical cerclage.
Yes, that's right.
Pretty much just holds the cervix closed. They put 2 in. So, and then I was just on bed rest from 17 weeks. And the hope was that this would hold the cervix shut and I would get to full term, which often it does. And I got to, it was 25 weeks on the dot, and I thought it was just gas. Like I felt like I had a bit of indigestion. Little did I know it was actually contractions. Yeah, and so they were happening more regularly, and I was like, oh, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. So we went into hospital. They did an internal and they said, look, the stitch isn't holding, your cervix just wants to open. So at this gestation, your baby is viable, but there is a lot of risk. Like we don't really know how it's going to be when it comes out. So I managed to stay in hospital for 3 days. So they gave me a drug to ease the contractions along with endone. So I would stop and then they would start again for 3 days. But now it was a blessing because it meant that we were given steroids for Sonny's lungs and magnesium for his brain. So I think that really helped give him that boost again at the start. So he was born at 25 weeks and 3 days.
Wow.
He weighed 780 grams. So he was tiny. And then so that was, and then so we had a NICU journey he was in there for just over 3 months. So at the beginning, his eyes were still fused shut. He was on breathing support. He was fed through a tube. For quite a while. But
and was that just so confronting?
Oh, it was. Yeah. But, at the time, I think it was just, you were just in survival mode, and it was like we just knew we had to be there, and that, they were doing an amazing job at looking after him. They were just incredible. And it's not until I actually look back now that I think how traumatic it was, you know, like now that
Yeah,
especially now having Alfie, it's like, wow, that was a really traumatic start.
Yes.
Yeah, to motherhood and having a child, and then coming home, and it was like the newborn phase, and we'd already been in hospital for all that time, and yeah, but so lucky because he is just thriving. You wouldn't even know now. He's got no long-term issues at all.
Wow.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
And they
Really
do say
incredible.
that every single day matters. Like the fact that you were able to stay 3 days in the hospital, every day counts for when that's happening. So that's amazing.
Yeah, so true. And I think now I look at him and I'm like, just all those little milestones and little things he does, I always just think back and like, oh my God, you are just amazing. Like you've come so far. It's So that was Sonny came home, and he thrived. He did so well, and we I suppose we thought about, like, we've always wanted a big family, and we thought, like, this time we kind of are one step ahead. We know what my diagnosis is. We know next time we could just get a stitch put in earlier, which would give us a better chance. So we thought about the idea, and then I just fell pregnant naturally. We weren't really trying.
Wow.
So Sonny was, I reckon he was maybe almost 2. And so that was we were very anxious, of course, but still feeling optimistic that I just felt like it was the timing and it was just, we were one step ahead this time. I just felt confident that we were going to be able to get further. And we were like, you know what, even if we get to 30 weeks, like you see the babies that are born at 30 weeks and just, they're fine.
Yes,
so we had kind of had that short-term goal, and pregnancy, like, still, again, it was fine at the beginning. 14 weeks along, I got a stitch put in, was feeling good, still like full of anxiety, just I think everything's coming up, and just trying to get through each little milestone. And then we got to 21 weeks, and it was nighttime. I'd just been to the burger place near us, and I had a big burger, so I was like feeling full. And I was like, had these pains again, and I was like, has to be indigestion. I was just in complete denial, and then they started happening regularly again. I'm like, oh my God, it's their contractions again. So we went straight to the hospital, and then I had a bleed, and they said, look, the stitch is opening again. So it was 21 weeks along here.
Gosh.
Yeah, and so my obstetrician said, like, look, if we can get another 2 weeks, like, you know, the baby's going to be okay. I was like, I just don't think I can do it. I could feel like that, So we tried again, like we did with Sonny, with the drugs and trying to ease the contractions, but this time they just wouldn't stop. I remember they said, okay, they put the scanning machine on the baby, and I think that was the hardest part, is like looking at him, and just, he was so happy and fine in there, and it was just my body that just couldn't hold on. And so they took the stitch out, and then he came like really quickly, and so that was Lenny. And this time, little Lenny, we felt like I was more prepared. Obviously it happened before, and we cuddled him, we spent the night with him, we got photos taken, and it was just so special. And I just almost regret that with Taj, that I just didn't feel like I could do that, but with Lenny we did. We didn't know, but no. And so that was, and that just,
I'm so sorry.
that just completely, thank you. Just broke us. I just feel like it was just heartache on top of heartache, and it was like at that point where I'm like, I just don't know if I can do this. Like, how?
Of course.
It was and so, but then I don't know, through this whole thing, I just have never been able to let go of hope. And I think I look back now and I'm like, I just had this in me, this feeling in me that we were going to have a baby, and we did. We had Sonny. And then again, I'm like, I'm just not ready to give up yet.
Yeah.
And I felt like crazy saying it. And we started looking into surrogacy because it was something that we kind of thought about in the past. And then the more I looked into it, I was like, it just makes sense. Like, we can make healthy babies. I just can't carry them. And this could be an option, finding somebody that could. And so that's when we started looking into surrogacy.
Wow. And it's a bit different in Australia, Sarah Olsen, because
inform me and all of this.
Yes, I will. I will tell you a lot less people get to have a surrogate in Australia because here you're unable to pay for surrogacy as a service because, our laws say that it has to be altruistic. So it has to be someone willing to carry your baby without financial gain, but having their medical expenses covered and whatnot. So unless you have a family member or like a very close friend, oftentimes surrogacy isn't a viable option for a lot of people. And we hear of so many Aussies. I know I have a friend myself who traveled to America and ended up paying to have a surrogate. So we just don't have that as an available option in Australia.
Wow, that is crazy. And amazing and fascinating. And I had no idea that it was different in different places. I just never even thought about it. So I can't wait to hear the story.
Yeah. So I want to know how you guys met. Ellie, how did you put it out there into the universe? How did people know that you were looking for a surrogate? And did you guys know each other before? Sarah, did you follow Ellie on Instagram? Did you know her story? I'm just so curious as to how you guys came together.
Well, it's actually a pretty cool story. So obviously I'm a photographer, and a few years ago, one of my good friends, he called me and he said, oh my gosh, this couple think they've booked me and they haven't, and their wedding was in 4 weeks. And it was right in the middle of the wedding season, crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, I have that date free. So I ended up taking this wedding, which was random that I had the date available. And Ellie was a bridesmaid in that wedding. So I first met her about, 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
3 years ago. And she had a little boy there called Sonny, and I have a little boy called Sonny. And they were
cute.
Yeah, and they were only 9 days apart. So I always just remembered, the girl from the wedding with a little boy called Sonny. And then it was probably 12 months later, I was still working with the Golden Month, my sister's business.
Yes.
And Ellie had just, I think you'd just given birth to Lenny. And so then I was just asked to organise some food for her, just as a bit of a care package. And I was like, oh, that's the girl from the wedding I did with a little boy called Sonny. And so she kind of popped up that way again. And I didn't know her story. I didn't know Sonny was prem. I didn't know about Taj. So, after Lenny was born, that's kind of when I looked into her story on Instagram, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so heartbreaking. And then probably a couple of months later, my sister sent me a screenshot of a post that Ellie had put up saying they were looking into surrogacy. And I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is happening. I just could see everything. I just knew it was going to happen. I didn't know how, but I was like, this is going to happen. I'm going to do this one way or another.
Wow. You were just tapped in.
Overwhelming feeling. Yeah, totally. And I just felt this calling. I was like, everything had sort of, I'd met her a year ago, and she has a Sonny, and it was just all these weird little things. And then the fact that, she'd sort of come about again through my other work with my sister. And it was just a bizarre feeling, but I just knew that it was going to happen.
Oh my goodness. It was like the universe brought you girls together.
Totally.
And there was just like a greater reason why you met. Oh, how
100%.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so Ellie, did you then get a DM from Sarah, or like how did that unfold? How, like, tell me about those initial conversations.
Yeah, so just back to putting the post out there, because we looked into it, and we actually looked into going to America or going overseas and doing surrogacy, because it just was sounded so much easier. But we were told that in Australia, the amount of surrogates, the amount of intended parents far outweigh surrogates. So the best way to know is to put it out to your immediate network, extended network, to find out if there's anybody around you that would carry. So that's what I did. And I put a post up just on my blog, and that's when that's what she read. So I think she sent me a message, but because we weren't following each other, it had gone into my junk mail. So I hadn't read it for a couple of weeks. Yes, I don't know if you were like holding on, like, why hasn't she written back?
Oh my gosh, what a spam message to get. Like, that's like the best spam you could possibly get.
Oh, that was like really risky, me leaving that there. God, I got to be better at checking my spam. So then I saw it, and it was very general, like, hey, Ellie, how you going? And I read it. And straight away, I had this feeling. Like, so it wasn't anything about the post. It was just a random message. And I was like, I don't know. I just had this feeling that this is what she wanted to do. And we talked about this. And then I got back to her. And then I just said, hey, didn't I? And then I don't even know how you said it. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I think I'd first sent a message saying, I was really sorry for your loss of Lenny, and then Ellie had just said, thanks, rah, rah, rah. And then I'd replied with, I saw your post about surrogacy. It's always something I've thought about, and if you wanted to catch up and chat more, I'd love to do that. So, and then it kind of just went from there.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like I'm
instantly,
listening.
as you're saying that, I'm like crying.
I know. I feel like I am listening to like a love story right now. Like, I'm like, and how did you meet? Like, I'm feeling tingles everywhere. And like, that is what it is. This is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. And the fact that you both had these downloads from the universe, like individually, you were like, this is the person. There's something about her. And you were drawn to each other in that way. So then, all right, so fast forward. So you have this conversation, and how does that go? And then please talk us through just the process, and how long was that process? Because it was relatively straightforward from what I remember you telling me, Sarah, about like you became pregnant and this just happened.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of, red tape to get through from my side of things, had to get a, medical clearance. Both of us had to do counselling with our partners, and then separate, and then all together. And then you've got to get some legal stuff signed. So this is all prior to transfer, an embryo transfer. So there's lots of tick boxes that you have to do, which can take quite a while, but I'm very impatient, and I was like, right, let's do this.
She was the one that actually made it all happen. Like, she was like getting my butt into gear.
Yeah, and I was like, I need to give birth before I'm 40. I can't do it when I'm 40. I just had it in my head.
You're an angel. I love it. Oh my God.
So yeah, we compared to what we've heard, we did it relatively quickly. Sort of from, the initial saying like, let's do this, to having an embryo, I think was less than a year. Was it?
Wow.
Less than a year, or just maybe a year?
I think it's around about a year.
Yeah, which is quick compared to what we've heard. So
yeah. And I'd gone through, so I did IVF like before, I don't know, maybe I'd met you, but we hadn't decided yet.
Yeah.
But we did IVF to make the embryos, because I was like, it's happening. Like, I hadn't actually confirmed who with yet, but I just felt like we're going to do this. So we went through IVF and then had the embryos frozen, ready for whenever that time would be. Yes.
Yes.
How incredible. And then you met each other. You went through all the legalities of it. And then the transfer happened. And I'm sure you were just like waiting with bated breath, like waiting for that double line, both of you.
Yes. Well, they, they book you in for a blood test. I'm like, who is going to wait for a blood test? No one. So I just knew that it would happen the first go. I didn't really, there's only apparently a 30% chance of success with IVF surrogacy. But I was like, nah, this will work. I'm not going through all this again. I just kind of knew that it would happen. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think that we needed each other. I needed that because I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's too good to be true.
Yeah.
And I felt like this whole process, she's just grounded me this whole process. Like, I've got to take her lead, follow her lead, like, and trust that. Yeah.
I have been around Sarah when she was photographing me for her sister, Dr. Carla Bryan's. Brion. There we go. Brion. I think it's Brion.
It is.
I always make it like way more Brion every time I say her name.
So you're doing it right.
There we go. So Brion. Dr. Carla Brion. Every time I've been around Carla, I have heard her talking about her beautiful sister, Sarah. And then I finally got to meet you that day and you had told me this special news that you were pregnant. And you have the most unbelievable energy. It is just calming and grounded and earthy. And I was like, we need to be friends. Tell me everything. And you're a mother of, you've got 4 kids?
Yes, yeah.
4 children like this.
That's what I was going to ask. What are the age ranges of your kids?
I've got a 13-and-a-half-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl, 3-and-a-half-year-old boy, and a 2-year-old girl.
Oh,
so close.
And I just wanted to be around you. I was like, I just need to be in this woman's orbit. She is so just earthy and so good and compassionate and one of those warm people. And I was like, of course you're doing this for this beautiful mother, Ellie. Of course you are. It felt like it was your calling as well. I was like, this is meant to be. And I knew I didn't even really know your story very well, but I was like, oh, this is happening. Like, this baby is going to be so healthy and this is their journey. It's going to be their story. And one day we're going to have them on the podcast and we're going to be talking about it. And here we are.
Wow. Funny.
Oh, wow. And so, Ellie, what was that like hearing that she was pregnant? Did you find out the information together? Were you together when the blood test came through, or tell us about that?
Well, Sarah couldn't help herself. She did a pregnancy test. And then I remember being I was a school teacher. I was just at school with the kids and I get this message of a pregnancy test with 2 lines. I'm like, what? Don't do this to me now.
Oh, my God.
And then, I don't know. I was just so happy. And it was like, there was 2 sides of it. It was that just feeling so anxious and just, I suppose, everything coming back and coming up, but then knowing that this experience was so entirely different. And like you said, Teresa, she's amazing. She just helped to calm me so much through all of it, all different parts. It was just, I would always look at her and be like, okay, she's calm and she thinks everything's okay. It must be okay. She's done this 4 times before.
Totally.
My experiences have obviously been traumatic, but this is different. And I just reminded myself of that.
Oh, wow. And then the pregnancy continues on and there are scans and you're just doing all of these things together, like you're in partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really obviously very different, but it was just easy. It just felt so easy and smooth sailing, and we're so comfortable with each other, and there's nothing we can't talk about or discuss, which has made it really helpful. And because I think being a surrogate, it would be very easy to feel kind of, left to the side or not appreciated or, kind of taken advantage of, just given that you're doing something that's so, I guess, vulnerable and intimate.
Yeah.
So I think that, I feel like that's a very fine line that probably maybe some surrogates experience, but I just never had that at all. I was just felt supported and, you know, anything I needed, they were able to organise, and which was, really, really helpful. So it was just, a smooth sailing process, really.
And how did your family feel, Sarah, when you went to your partner and you were like, hey, this is what I want to do? I mean, obviously it was a conversation. And with your children as well, how did you explain that? Like, what was that conversation like, and how did they embrace your feelings?
The kids were fine. That my eldest, Miles, he was just happy that there wasn't going to be another baby living here. He was just like, as long as you get rid of it, that's fine.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, because he's like, no more babies, Mum, stop. And Macy, my second, she was so excited, and she, being a girl too, I think she was more interested in the whole process, but she was pretty pumped. And they were both really happy when they found out that, you know, I was pregnant and it was all going to be fine and it was all happening. They were both really, really excited. And then the smaller two were too young to really know. So, they don't really have much of an idea until I had a big belly, you know.
And they're like, what?
And my partner, Anthony, at first he was like, thought I wasn't serious. And then when I just kept talking about it, he was like, oh, great. So he was a bit apprehensive at first. I think, this is something I spoke to the fertility clinic about, and she said it's so normal for partners to be like, I don't want you to do this, because they worry about this, you know, the safety of their partner without getting anything out of it. So they're not getting a baby out of it, but they're worrying about their partner. So, I mean, eventually he came around and he knew that I wasn't going to not do it. So he didn't really have a choice but to be on board.
Oh, what a legend. Aww. And I'm sure he like became close with like Ellie and your husband as well during the process.
Well, we've still never, like, they've still met him once the day of the hospital pickup. That was like the first time we'd all been in the same room, because it has just been,
oh my gosh,
so hard to get everyone together in one spot.
Yeah.
Wow. So we do have plans.
Eventually.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we would love to hear about the birth. Can you tell us about that process, and how was it?
We actually decided that I would be induced for logistics. Obviously, I have 4 kids I need to organise. Ellie has, and her husband Luke had to get off work and organise Sunny, and my sister Carla had to organise her kids to be looked after, because she was my support in through the birth. So we just had a booked induction and went in, and it was a bit of a saga at the hospital, and eventually my water got broken the next morning, and we just sort of thought, I'll give it a bit of time for my body to, you know, kick off. And I was running up hills and doing all the things. Carla was giving me acupuncture and but it just wasn't fast enough. And being impatient, I was like, right, I've had enough. Let's get this show on the road. Give me the hormone drip. And so once I had that, it was literally straight away, and I think within 3 hours he was born. So
wow.
Yeah, so I usually have quick labours anyway, so I knew that as soon as I have the hormone, it'll be just, you know, all systems go. Yeah.
I saw the footage of you in the water. So did you end up having a water birth?
I did, yeah, because I've always wanted one. I've never got one. And even when I pictured, like, when I saw that surrogacy post, I pictured me in a bath giving birth to this baby. I was like, it was all so strange, and it was all just such this amazing vision that kind of came to life. So yeah, I'm like a really still labourer. I just like to.
She was amazing.
I just like to lay and just let it happen. I describe myself like a cat going into a bush giving birth.
Yeah. I mean, watching you on the reel, like seeing that footage of you on the reel was so amazing. And I was just like, wait, like they were shining the flashlight and I was like, she's like, doesn't even look like she's screaming or anything. And I was like,
I know.
And then I could see the baby coming out and I was like, oh my God, like that was so, it just looked so effortlessly beautiful the way that it all happened. I mean, obviously there's a lot of effort going on, but I'm just saying as a person watching it, I was like, wow, I wanted a water birth as well. And I haven't been able to have one. But it is like watching it, you and Tez and all the ones that I've seen. I mean, it was just, gosh, it was so special.
And just from our perspective, like Luke and I, it was like such a healing experience and just to be a part of that. But watching her, we were just in absolute awe. It was exactly like you see, she was just so calm the whole time. She didn't make a noise. Like the only way I could see she was having contractions was her breathing, like her ribs going in and out. Like it was just, our jaws were just dropped the whole time. And like
I think
after
you
the
need
birth,
to teach a birth course.
that's what
I know,
yes, she
same.
does.
I'm like, and there's this moment when you're watching on your Instagram, there's this moment when the baby comes out and you have the baby against you. And then this is the part that made me cry. And then I see you like turn to the right. And so were you turning to the right to like look over at Ellie?
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful because you're like starting to get teary and I was like, oh, just the exchange and the selflessness of that. It's such an act of love. It's like the biggest act of love I've ever seen. I can't even talk about it without crying.
I know.
But that moment is just so beautiful. And it just looked like you were surrounded by the most stunning energy and love. And just seeing you do that, seeing you like turn to the right and look over, I was just like, oh, I can't.
I know.
Ellie, how was that for you when she like looks at you? What happened?
In that moment, there was so much going on. And I have that video I've watched over and over again for that moment. That moment that she looks at me, just to be able to take it all in, because at the time it was just a lot. But when you said that, I was like, oh my God, I just can't get over that look that she gives me. And
same.
That, and I just think that like just seeing her do that for us, like in that moment of labouring and giving birth, it was just opened my heart completely, and just someone else doing this for us. Like, how incredible is that? I just, I feel like now we've said, I actually haven't processed it. I think the last week I've been feeling like, oh my God, like, well, this has actually happened. Like, like he's here, Alfie's here, and Sarah grew him and gave birth to him, and, just trying to connect all the dots and make sense of it. I feel like we're just kind of coming back down to earth now, and but it was incredible.
That is so beautiful. And those first like moments, and when you brought your new baby home to your son, how was that moment? Was he just like freaking out?
Loves him. He loves him. He's like, I waited so long for you, Alfie. Like we have, so he's almost 4 now, so he's very aware, and we thought of Alfie's name. We knew it like the whole time. So he told half the world what his name was before he was born. But he used to always talk about him. So I think by the end he's like, is this baby coming? Like he kind of was disinterested, and then when now he's home, he's just like obsessed, so obsessed. And it's like, I think I look at him, I'm like, I didn't think I could love you anymore, but now seeing you as a big brother, like having him, oh my God, it's just so amazing.
There is such a shift that happens when you see them all of a sudden as a big brother and there's another baby around. Yes. There's like such a shift. You see them so differently. Yeah. And Sarah, how was that for you? I mean, I can only imagine like those moments after, and then you're, in postpartum, and then you're going, back home. Like how was that, whole experience after carrying the baby?
Yeah, it was so crazy. Like I was telling Ellie and Luke in the hospital after Alfie was born, like the pregnancy was so different to all my others in terms of like there was just no, I don't know if it's a mental, like a self-preservation thing, but I had no connection, that baby connection that you get when you're pregnant, because you envision like bringing the baby home and like clothes and I didn't obviously have to do any of that. So it was really like a pregnancy for me, and it was kind of like a job that I was doing. And then when he was born, and I think it was that night, I was like, oh my God, I just had all this love for him that I hadn't really had before, which was so nice, because it was such a weird feeling to, have this baby for growing in me and then not having those, deep connection feelings, but it came afterwards, which I loved. But just like the moment of giving Ellie the baby or Alfie the baby, it was just so unreal. And I just it just makes me so happy that they have finally got, another little boy in their arms. And it's just magic, and it just makes it all, I don't know, it just makes it all make sense. And it was just so beautiful. And then, coming home to like 4 kids and housework and work, and just like nothing's changed really for me.
And we dropped her home after the airport, and Luke and I were like, this doesn't feel right. I was like, that was one of the most emotional parts. We just wanted to take her home with us and all be together. I'm like, that'd be kind of strange.
Commune. I can only imagine. Wow, that is just amazing. And so, I mean, just, I don't know, every time that you're speaking about all the steps of it, I'm thinking you're going to say something and you say something else. And it's just so, I'm like, you're so much more evolved than any question that I can ask, like it's just so beautiful the way that you're speaking about all of this. And I'm in awe of you, and so inspired by you. I'm like,
seeing the two of you together, exactly what Sarah just said, is so profound. And I really hope that this can be an episode that people come back to and listen over and over again when they're considering surrogacy. And I know one of the things that my girlfriend was nervous about, and she's looking into surrogacy right now, she was like, but I really want to have the breastfeeding journey with my baby, and I'm not sure I'd be able to do that. But then lo and behold, here you are, Ellie, breastfeeding
tell us about
your baby.
We
want to hear about that. That is so inspiring.
Well, I didn't even know it was possible at the beginning either. I just I hadn't really thought about it properly, but I was like, I think the baby will obviously have to be formula fed. And then I found out that actually, no, I can induce lactation, that women that have never given birth before can induce lactation. And there were some that were around me in South Australia that were able to exclusively feed for like the first year or 2 without ever giving birth.
Wow.
So with Sonny, because we're in NICU, I didn't breastfeed for 3 months. So I exclusively pumped with him until he came home, and he was still fed through a tube. So I knew that I could do it. So it was, obviously having to do a lot of pumping. I'd done it before, and my supply, I'm so lucky I had a good supply. So I went and saw a lactation consultant, and I followed this protocol where I had to go on the pill for a month, and that mimics your body into thinking it's pregnant. You stop the pill at, I think Sarah was 34 weeks along, and then I started exclusively pumping every 3 hours from 34 weeks until the baby came.
And you would set alarms at nighttime?
Well, I got a bit slack at night.
Because that was my friend was like, wait, do I have to wake up at nighttime and pump at nighttime? I was like, let me ask.
To be honest, and I probably should have, because I think that's when the hormone prolactin is produced more when you are feeding at night. But I did like once like late night and then really early morning, but I never got good at overnight. But luckily, and I think because I'd fed Sonny, like that would have been, I stopped feeding him maybe 2 years. And then when I had Lenny, my milk came in again. So I still had a little bit of milk there. So I think for me, it was already there. So it was quite easy. But it's possible without even having given birth. And so then, and I had to go on, I went on a drug too that women will take if they have low supply. So I just kind of accepted that I was going to do this because I just wanted to have that bonding experience. And then once he was here, it's going really well, and I'm able to exclusively feed him. And it was a bit. I was a bit unsure at the beginning because I didn't have that engorgement, like my milk didn't come in. So I was wondering whether I had enough, but I feel like my body's catching up. He's putting on weight, and it's working. So I know I feel so lucky to be able to do it.
It's unbelievable. Your post, I think it was like the third photo. It was so wonderful how you did it, because you said, hey, this is where I started. Look at this small amount of breast milk I was able to express. And then you swipe across, and then the next post was like more breast milk than I have ever been able to pump ever in my like 4 children. And I've been breastfeeding from 2014 without a break. And I was like, oh my God, your supply. Like, that is so impressive. I just like, how remarkable. So you have all those moments of being able to nurse him and just meet his needs in that way. I just find that just that extra slice of just encouragement for anyone who's thinking about doing this, but feeling wobbly and worried about not being able to have that bond. Like, that is not necessarily true. Like, with the time and commitment, to see that you are able to do that is just wonderful. And I'm sure for you, some parts of this journey have been really bittersweet, and I'm sure triggering in some ways. But then there are these incredible moments like this where it's just such a gift. What a gift to be able to nurse your baby.
Yeah. You said it so perfectly. I think it's been a lot of just letting go of the way that I thought it was going to be. And I suppose a lot of like guilt and, that my body couldn't do it. But then, I don't know, I just think of what I've experienced here, and it's like, it's not the way I imagined, but it's been so beautiful and special in a different way. And I've really, really come to a place of peace, especially now that Alfie's here. It just feels like it was just the way that it was meant to be for us. I think we've had, the whole time it's just felt right and felt like, it was always going to be this way. So.
And I bet it's been nice, like, not having that NICU experience of bringing the baby home from the NICU. Here he is, healthy and thriving and just abundant. It's incredible.
We've just been like just in this bliss bubble these last couple of weeks, and we've realised that with Sonny, it was like a lot of PTSD coming home, and it's just I realise now that when Sonny came home from hospital, I couldn't feel anything, and I struggled for a while, just kind of just doing everything, but not actually being able to feel. And this time I'm like, we just sit there and he's sleeping and we're just staring and we're like, oh my God, this is the newborn bubble, and it's just so different. And I feel like this is how it's meant to be. It's, definitely like just soaking it all up. It's been amazing.
Oh, guys. Well, you're so amazing.
So amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much for sharing this story. I just know that there are going to be thousands and thousands of listeners feeling so inspired and moved, and you guys are going to affect change. I think you guys are just like a pillar of like strength and love and what this journey can be.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here.
I just want to say thank you so much for letting us tell this story. And like the whole time all we hope is that people have a bigger awareness around this, and can, lots of people still think it's not even legal here. So if we can just help one other family, find a surrogate, and it would be so amazing, because it really is just the best experience and such a rare thing, to do, and not many people get to experience birth this way. It's really beautiful, and hopefully there's more people out there that are happy to give it a go. It'd be great.
And I just think at the beginning of all of this, like, you have in your head that it is. It's like there's not much information. You feel like it's all too complicated. And I think our journey is just an example of it not having to be that way. And, I think if we can share that with others and give them hope and inspire them to maybe look at the path, then, that's all we can ask for.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, girls.
You are both amazing. Congrats on that beautiful little boy, Alfie, who is so loved by so many people. And he's just divine, a perfect bub.
Amazing.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you. And hopefully I get to meet you all in person one day.
One day. We we're into coming to Adelaide.
I know. Daisies, I hope this story was inspiring to all of you as it was to us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, Daisies.